Hello everybody, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Art, the evil spawn from hell, the destroyer of angels. And apparently, according to my mother, I sold my soul to Satan the day that I developed a personality, like when I was like 9. And if you ask my family, the people who surrounded and enabled and actually refused to bring her in to get professional help, they will tell you that I'm too sensitive for my own good, yet somehow I'm so insensitive with a horrible character, which is why I deserve to be the target of my mother's abuses and sickness, okay? Yet at the same time, I was never abused, but I deserve the abuse. Go figure. Welcome to Wonderland, right? Where nothing makes sense, and yet in a narcissistic family cult, everything makes sense because it's part of the culture. Really, if you think about it, all that's missing, the missing piece here is to have a white rabbit run behind me holding a pocket watch and tell you that he's late to meet the Queen of Hearts, That's how normal everything is in that happy Wonderland. And apparently, my upbringing was normal. Absolutely normal, okay? Nothing wrong with my upbringing, and so was yours, right? I mean, if you're here watching this, I could bet on it that you've been told thousands of times that you're the problem and that everything is normal and that you're ungrateful, right? You're ungrateful for all the things that you received and that you should just put up with more abuse because that's part of the contract that you signed, when you were born in that family, apparently. And, if, in my experience, if we try to reach out to family members or if we try to call out our abuser, they won't just deny that we were abused, they will actually mock your pain, And of course, your abuser will reverse the situation and they will call themselves the victim and you the abuser. And they will tell you that the things that you go through in your house are absolutely normal. For example, being screamed at and getting angry at for being sad or for having emotions, rightful emotions. When you witness a dysfunction that's going on. Being ignored for days, weeks, months. Silent treatment designed to punish and to hurt you when you're just a child. And then growing up into adulthood, that stuff never stops. I mean, that's normal. It's normal. It's your character. It's nothing to do with the fact that this person is actually sick. This is your character. It's your fault, right? Having your privacy be violated, right? That's not a boundary violation. It's normal. And you're not allowed to be angry about that because then you're dysfunctional if you get angry about that. Being compared to your siblings or to strangers all the time as proof that you're not good enough. I mean, that's not psychological dismantling. That's not abuse, That's not psychological abuse. That's normal. Being constantly told that you will never measure up to me, this stuff is I'm a mother, I have kids. And the stuff that was done to me and that family labeled as normal is mind-boggling to me. Being made to apologize for things that you didn't actually do just to keep the peace, right? Because they are constantly inventing reasons to fight with you because you're their release system. They need to relieve, their issues onto you. And then you're the one who needs to apologize to them. Like, that makes sense, And I'm talking about addictions, like living with someone who's addicted, whether it's to alcohol or drugs or to victimhood, because yes, there is such a thing as addiction to victimhood with those people. Enduring physical assaults, maybe sexual assaults that were denied, excused, and blamed on you. And then you're told, why are you making such a big deal out of it? Don't you realize that you're going to ruin whoever's reputation they're trying to protect if you, speak up about the abuses that you've been through? And in general, just watching violence and chaos be normalized in your household, I mean, when I was growing up, I was that house where you always heard screaming coming from every day, and it was so embarrassing as a child or as a teenager to walk out of my house because I always felt like I was being judged because there was always screaming, crying. I mean, she would always push me to the brink, to the breaking point, and this was several times a day. And I mean, all of that is normal. It's normal. I mean, they are so good at normalizing these things and at creating self-doubt within us that many of us will actually question whether we really were abused or not, whether maybe we are crazy. And oftentimes the guilt will also overwhelm us. Like it's, we will question everything that's ever happened to us, and we will wonder whether, it's us that are insane in this whole thing. And when we show symptoms of distress, of trauma, of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what happens after this type of upbringing, it's inevitable, they will take those symptoms and utilize them as proof that you're crazy, that there's something wrong with you, and they will call you crazy. I mean, there came a point where I would self-harm, and I would have panic attacks because she would push me to such a breaking point. I wanted to just smash my head against the wall and take out my brain and throw it on the ground. The pain was so physical. And when I would have panic attacks, she would smile and she would call me an actress. And I would reach out to my father for help. I would reach out to my brother for help, the two family members that were living in that house at the time. My brother was older. He was an adult at the time. I wasn't. And my brother's reaction to that was this, it's so funny, oh my god, she's so crazy, Anyways, did you see that recent music video? And then, I'm not joking, this was literally my brother's reaction all my life when I tried to reach out for help. And my father, also his reaction was go take a pill and come back when you feel better. Because they will use your mental health against you when you actually try to ask for help. Your mental health doesn't matter. Your feelings don't matter. Your emotions don't matter. Your boundaries don't matter. But if something happens to them, whether it's imagined, because most of the time with an abusive parent, they will create scenarios from their very active imagination, to try and create conflict and drama in the house to make you react so that they can use you as a relief system, When something happens to them, all of a sudden, it matters. Nothing else matters more, right? If something affects them directly, then it's real. Then they're allowed to have emotions, they're allowed to scream, they're allowed to do whatever they need to do because their mental health matters. But when it's you, when you're the one breaking from years and years and years of psychological torture, it's all in your head, okay? The hypocrisy of the whole thing is astounding. And you know what else is astounding to me? While you're in contact, all this stuff happens, right? You're diminished, invalidated, laughed at, made invisible, and so on. Your abuser is permitted to target you because it's what's best for the family collective, right? It's what makes the house calm, right? It's to keep, it's keeping the balance. They're allowed to abuse you. They will badmouth you, they will smear you, they'll accuse you of all these things, right? But when you finally go no contact because you say, okay, fine, you hate me, we don't get along, obviously. I mean, it's a lot deeper than that, but just on a surface level for conversational purpose. Okay, we don't get along. I'm gonna go no contact. Okay, let's just keep our distance from each other and call it a day. They don't let you. They don't let you do that. All of a sudden, the flying monkeys are coming at you. Your abuser misses you. Your abuser's suffering. Your abuser loves you. Your abuser loves you. Oh my gosh, I heard that so many times. My father, your abuser loves you. You don't know what she says when you're not home, how much she worries about you, how much she worries about you. Now, once you go no contact, something happens, okay? Now, I went no contact many times. I've told you guys that before, many times in my videos. And when I went no contact for good, and when I mean for good, I mean I no longer have a relationship with anybody who enables the narcissist. Like, I'm fully out of the system, you know? Once you leave this crazy wonderland, once you decide to no longer sit at the Mad Hatter's table and things get quiet, after a point, you look around for the first time and you're like, wow, no one's screaming at me anymore. Like, no one's having screaming matches with me. No one. You know? There's no more constant panic. There's no more walking on eggshells. No one is pushing my buttons to prove to the world that there's something wrong with me. No one is digging at my vulnerabilities, you know, baiting me until I explode. So that when I explode, they say, see, this is the real you. Nobody knows the real you but me. I know the real you. Don't fool yourself. This is the real you. You know? Nobody's doing that. And you actually have a peaceful relationship. I know, you know, when you go no contact, it takes years. And connecting with people is very tricky. But I'm talking about just that general sense of, you know, existing, and there's no longer any of those, you know, triggering insane moments where, you know, you explode and you get sick and your trauma symptoms are triggered over and over and over again. And, you know, it's strange because the chaos that used to surround you defined your reality. But when this chaos disappears, you realize how much of your identity was just built around surviving that chaos, and that was it. And this is you on survival mode. This is not actually your identity. This is you, you know, this is your nervous system, you know, being activated, you know, into hyper-arousal or hypo-arousal mode over and over and over again. And that's what I say, that's why I say, you know, when I mean scapegoating is crazy making, once you assigned that role, you're cornered from every angle, you know. There's no way that you can win, whether you stay or whether you leave. No matter what you do, whether you're calm or, like, they will corner you from every angle. And they will force this role onto you, which isn't who you are at all. And when you step out of that system completely, when you detach completely from everyone who kept this game going, your nervous system starts to notice something that it's never felt before. And that is actually peace. That is calm, you know? Not perfect peace, not instant healing, but just a quiet space, you know, where you can actually start to hear yourself again for the first time. You no longer react the way that you did when your abuser was present. You start to be able to breathe again. You know, guys, ever since I've gone no contact, I've been no contact for many years, I don't get panic attacks anymore. I'm not in survival mode anymore. I don't take any pills for my for my panic attacks anymore. I'm clean. I don't drink anymore. I'm clean. I'm 100% clean. You know, when my abuser is not in my life, I am a completely different person. I am myself. But they will tell you that they know you. They know the real you. The real you that's traumatized. They think they will create a personality around you as if who you are as a person is that traumatized person that they created. And this has been a huge part of my experience of going no contact, because if we put aside the loneliness, which is inevitable, especially in the first few years, this comes with the recovery of being the family scapegoat. But when you get past the fear and when you start to really prioritize your healing and get selfish, you get selfish, right? Selfish as in you prioritize yourself and your mental health no matter what. Like you come first because you have to come first, You discover that you're actually capable of taking care of yourself. You discover that you actually know what is best for you. You discover that you can actually get along with people, with acquaintances, with coworkers, and that you don't have the same reactions out there, the same physical reactions as when you did when you were in contact with your family. And that says a lot about what's really going on. You begin to work the work of recovering from people who needed you to believe you were crazy. And I'm going to dive into this with you because your healing actually exposes the family dysfunction for what it really is. Even though they act like they don't believe for a second that there is anything wrong with the family. The moment that you begin to live well, to create, to love, to rebuild your life, every story they told you, about who you are, completely falls apart. The entire narrative about you falls apart. And when you go no contact, when you leave, then they have two choices. A, they continue to smear and blame you for the rest of their lives. The narcissistic parent will select a new scapegoat, and the roles are just going to reshuffle, and the dysfunction is going to continue. Or B, they wake up. Don't hold your breath for that to happen. Because for option B to happen, the people who enable the sick person in your family, the ones who look away, who stay quiet, who call it normal, who rationalize their behavior in 1,000 different ways, they would have to stop doing what they do best, enabling narcissistic abuse and calling it empathy. Your abuser is not going to suddenly become self-aware and stop doing what they're doing, not when denial and blame has been their entire survival strategy their entire life. They will never, ever, ever take accountability, not while they're surrounded by enablers, okay? Not while there are so-called well-meaning empaths who think that they're doing the right moral thing by protecting someone who actually needs accountability and professional help to truly maybe heal. And instead of constantly reinforcing that victimhood narrative, which enables their bad behavior and which enables the sickness, and which is the reason why they don't feel like they need to get help. They can just continue abusing and they continue living their life the way they do because everybody around them is constantly catering to that. And they believe that, their victimhood gives them the green light to keep hurting other people, to keep abusing, to keep destroying, because that part is being nurtured all the time. Now, these enablers will rush to comfort the abuser, excuse their cruelty as pain, and silence the actual abuse survivors who dare to say something and speak the truth about what's really going on and what they've been through in that house. And they will mistake, appeasement for compassion. And in doing so, they will keep the narcissistic parent or person trapped in this delusion, and the real victims are trapped, in silence. In my experience, it's the enablers who make real change impossible. Impossible. in families, in workplaces, in politics, even in the online world. They will protect toxic parents. They will protect corrupt leaders. They will protect abusive partners, and even influencers who are openly cruel to animals, right? They will silence truth tellers, excuse harm, and call it keeping the peace in the name of morality or whatever. Enablers are the real reason why you doubt yourself, why you doubt your reality, because they cushion the narcissist from consequences, rewrite reality when things get uncomfortable, and smooth over the damage. The abuser never has to feel shame for what they did. It's okay. Yeah, I know, you hit that person, you hit your child, but it's okay. It's not your fault. Yeah, they didn't mean it. That's just, how they are. They're suffering. It's not their fault. They have a life story. You need to forgive them and move on. You misunderstood their intentions, right, guys? You misunderstood their intentions. How many of you have heard that one before? Why are you so mean to them and so judgmental? They will call your boundaries cold and your silence cruel and your truth drama. Isn't that ironic? Enablers play the role of emotional bodyguards, shielding the narcissist from ever having to look in the mirror. And this is the truth. Some do it out of conditioning, and some because they protect the narcissist. Protecting the narcissist will give them a sense of superiority, and it makes them feel like they're the peacekeepers, like they're the bigger person, like they're the empaths. And when I say this, I'm not talking about real empathy, or people who genuinely see the harm caused to victims and understand that the survivor has the right to heal, on their own terms. I'm talking about performative empathy, the kind that hides behind kindness while standing on the side of abuse, okay? What they're really protecting isn't peace, it's the lies that keep the system alive. They believe that keeping the peace, is the right thing to do at any cost. Keeping the peace, okay? Peace, because it's not really peace, okay? And the cost, at any cost, the cost is you and me, it's the victims, is people whose childhoods, whose sense of self, whose entire way of being were shaped by that abuse. They have no idea what that person did to you and how deeply it affected you. And even if they did, their first instinct would still be to protect the abuser. And that's because the system that they've built around themselves to prop themselves up depends on it. Now, some of them will deny everything because, if they admitted what happened, they'd have to face their own guilt for not protecting you. Others will play fake peacemakers. Let's just move on and never talk about this again, as if silence ever fixed anything or healed anyone. There's the moral ones, the ones who hide behind religion, a cause, an ideology, and they believe that they have to continue protecting this ideology, at all cost. And they will call your boundaries cruel, because it threatens their illusion, their fabrication of what is right and what is wrong. You also, of course, have enablers who are afraid of becoming the next scapegoat. And so they keep quiet, even if that means betraying you, And finally, you have like the good ones, the ones who act supportive to your face, like my father, but when the abuser comes out, they completely change who they are, and they no longer have your back anymore. They just feed you to the wolves. So yeah, option B is technically possible, but for it to happen, the whole web of denial, the whole system, and the moral posturing would have to unravel. And I don't think that really happens. Because most people in that system would rather protect the lie than face the truth. I mean, this is self-preservation at its finest. Living the lie protects them from guilt and from shame. And the truth would shatter the entire framework of who they think they are. So yes, technically option B exists. People could wake up, But waiting for that to happen is like waiting for the Cheshire cat to appear before us and to show us the magic door, so that we can get far, far away. I mean, the scapegoat healing can't depend on waiting for that. Your peace comes when you stop needing anyone from that system to actually validate you or understand you, because they can't do it. And the sooner that you understand this and accept this, the faster your healing will progress. Because your healing is the truth. Your healing exposes the truth. And that's something that they can't control. Scapegoating starts where awareness ends, where self-awareness ends. Where denial of a toxic, flawed system takes over and the truth becomes too threatening to face. And this is why they'll never, ever, ever admit to you that you were abused. That's why they will tell you that the horrible things that you've been through are of no concern, that you're the crazy one, and that you need to keep your mouth shut. Because when a family or group or community is built on lies or unhealed trauma, tension builds. And real issues are not addressed. They're too uncomfortable, too dangerous to look at. And then all of a sudden, there comes the scapegoat, right? This is usually a child who's different, who's stubborn, who's sensitive. The one who actually notices what everyone else is pretending not to see and who reacts authentically to it. Their presence threatens the family carefully constructed illusion. This illusion of harmony, and they become that pressure valve, of the family's unacknowledged pain. Every bit of guilt or envy or shame or sickness or trauma or rage that's unprocessed within that family will get dumped onto the scapegoated child. Carl Jung described this process as projection of the shadow. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But most people don't want understanding, they want relief, and blaming someone gives quick relief. Now the sad thing is that scapegoating feels good to those who scapegoat, and it's disturbing. When a person or a group projects their disowned darkness onto a target, they experience a temporary sense of purity, of relief, of moral superiority. And this is like a false purification ritual, one that mimics spiritual cleansing, if you will. But it's actually moral corruption disguised as righteousness. The group, will feel unified through this shared hatred, through their shared dysfunction. And they will feel virtuous for standing up against evil, which is what you represent. They feel safe because that bad thing is outside of them. They can get rid of it. It's outside of them. There's no introspection. The evil is not within. The evil is projected onto this one thing outside of them. And this is the same impulse that you will find behind like witch hunts and public shaming and like moral panics. It's psychic anesthesia. It dulls the pain of self-confrontation by externalizing it. So, if you have a family where the parent is emotionally immature, narcissistic, or burdened by shame, the family system will unconsciously organize itself around protecting that parent's ego, not the child's well-being, okay? So when something goes wrong, if there's conflict or tension or emotional volatility, the family will ask, who's to blame instead of what's happening? Who's to blame instead of what is going on here, okay? And the one child who feels deeply, who speaks honestly, who refuses to pretend, becomes the perfect target. They are different. We disturb the collective denial by asking questions, by reacting authentically to what's going on. And unfortunately, over time, our nervous system will learn that if we're visible, we're going to be attacked. If we speak the truth, we're going to be abandoned. If we absorb other people's pain, then maybe we'll stay safe, or maybe we'll finally be loved. And that's the birth of the scapegoat. It's like we sign this invisible contract that says, I will carry the sickness of the system so that others can thrive and survive. And the thing is that eventually you don't even need to this external scapegoating anymore, because it becomes internal. As an adult, you will feel guilty for things that aren't your fault. You will take on blame in relationships like automatically. You're going to over-apologize. You're going to over-explain. We will attract bullies, narcissists who manipulate, and what I call like self-serving or pseudo-empaths. People who use empathy to feel good about themselves rather than to truly support you. Okay? They use this empathy, it's like a drug for them to make themselves feel good, but it's still about them. It's not actually about you. And all of these types will drain your energy. They will confuse you, and they will keep you trapped in this dynamic, each in their own way, while convincing themselves that they're justified or compassionate. All of them are going to make you feel like you owe them something. And down the rabbit hole you go again and again and again and again. And this happens because the abuser's voice is still echoing inside your head. If I keep blaming myself, if I keep fawning, maybe I'll be safe. Maybe if I wasn't abused, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm ungrateful, maybe I need to overcompensate for my flaws to have love in my life, and so on. That voice, it will drive everything that we do. We will overcompensate, we will over-apologize, we will take on more than our fair share of responsibility long after the abuse ended, even after we go no contact. This is a trauma adaptation, and it creates self-sabotaging loops. Because in dysfunctional families, the scapegoat will carry what nobody else will bear. Okay, the narcissistic or emotionally immature parent externalizes their inner chaos onto the child that sees too much. And that child becomes the truth teller, the emotional container, absorbing the parent's rage and pain and the symbolic sacrifice of the family, maintaining the illusion that everything is fine. And this is why when you start to set boundaries, when you start to heal, when you go no contact, when you recreate a healthy life for yourself, this is when the family will escalate hostility, and they will smear you because your healing actually threatens them. It threatens the reality, the illusion that they created for themselves, the fake reality, I should say. And scapegoating is essentially a ritualized avoidance of truth. It's easier to destroy a person than to dismantle a lie that sustains an identity, a person's identity, their identity. So at its core, scapegoating is a very primitive survival mechanism. It creates this false cohesion in chaotic groups, and it deflects attention from the powerful and from the guilty. And it gives people a sense of control over fear and uncertainty. But, spiritually and psychologically, it's the ultimate betrayal. It's the ultimate betrayal of another person, of another child, and it's a betrayal of human conscience. Now, all this to say that you're actually so much more powerful than you realize. People who were scapegoated, often spend their whole lives searching for what's real, for what's authentic. Because growing up, everything around us was so twisted and so fake. Everything was fake and we could see it. The truth was always distorted and twisted. Blame got misplaced, we were punished for seeing things that others refused to see, and we became a target because of that. Now, this experience shaped something very important within us. We develop a deep connection with what's genuine, with what's authentic, with honesty, with emotional clarity, with realness. We develop, a strong connection with what's real. And when something's off, when you walk into a room full of people who are being absolutely fake because it's for work or because they're trying to please a narcissist or because of whatever reason, they're pretending for the sake of the group to be something that they're not. They hide behind an image, they hide behind lies. We can generally really pick up on that fairly quickly because we become so sensitive to inauthenticity, and that energy, that truthfulness can be really, really, really uncomfortable for people who aren't authentic because they will sense it. People that can't face their own issues will sense that vibe. And it's not about what we say, it's just the vibe that we carry. So being around someone authentic can make them feel wrong. And instead of looking inward, they will unconsciously think, you're the reason why I feel this way. And that's projection. They're trying to offload, basically, their discomfort onto you. And that's why scapegoats so often will attract, blame and hostility and these reactions from people that we actually can't explain. It's not logical. And then we will wonder, what's wrong with me? No, it's not what's wrong with you. It's actually what's right with you. This is emotional transference. You're basically reflecting back to them what's unresolved within them. You do this naturally because of your upbringing, because of how you grew up. So do not confuse that and people's reactions, especially when you're dealing with people who are not authentic, who are not doing introspection. Do not confuse their reactions towards you as there being something wrong with you. Don't absorb that. Understand what's really, really happening here. And this really, most of all, you must apply with your family of origin. When you understand what's really going on, then you can actually reclaim your healing and your space and your energy. You can set boundaries. You can stop carrying the weight of other people's unresolved pain. You actually start to see the dynamic for what it really is. And for the first time, you can actually say to yourself, this is not my fault, and really feel it deep down inside. Really know, this is actually not my fault. Healing really starts when you actually stop carrying what's never yours. If you go no contact or low contact, and everybody's going crazy, look at that for what it really is. You didn't cause that, but when you leave, you're exposing that. When you go low contact, when you stop reacting, when you gray rock, when you protect yourself, when you prioritize yourself, when you do all the things that are right for you, and they go crazy, you're actually exposing what's really going on versus causing it. You're not causing it, you're exposing the truth. Because your mere presence is used as a buffer to hide the truth. And when you leave, the truth is actually exposed. You were never the problem. You were the mirror that showed them what they couldn't see for themselves. And, real healing is not just about cutting contact and moving on. It's really learning to come home to yourself, It means facing the anger and the grief that you've had to suppress for years. It means you're allowing yourself to feel the emotions that you weren't allowed to feel for your entire life, It means setting boundaries even when it costs you your relationships, because this is what you have to do to heal. You have to learn to set boundaries and stick by them and to prioritize yourself without feeling guilty about anything, because you're not the problem. You're not the problem. You're the target. You're not the problem. And as you do this, of course, it also means that you have to find safe people that reflect back the truth to you, which is that the problem really isn't you. And that's why when you actually connect with people, when you meet new people, it's hard because authenticity is pretty rare. If you meet someone who's actually introspective and someone who's actually authentic, authentic enough. I think self-discovery is something that never stops and that we do for the rest of our lives. But meeting people who are really actually genuinely authentic is very rare. So that's why I think don't beat yourself up, because reconnecting, creating healthy connections takes a long time. It takes a really long time after you go no contact. You have to recreate your whole world essentially. And you have to learn to surround yourself with people that reflect positive, healthiness, back to you. I don't mean positive as in enabling things if you do something wrong, but it just means that are healthy for you. And as you do this over time, something will shift. The scapegoat does see clearly, the scapegoat, the truth teller, you realize that you're the one who refuses to play old games, like dysfunctional games. You refuse to sit at the Mad Hatter's table, and your wounds actually become your wisdom. But that actually only happens when you stop trying to earn love from people who are actually dysfunctional and who can't face the truth, who can't. All they can do is project, and hurt. So when you leave the system, really that's when the family will start to crack. Because without you, they have to find someone to blame. And of course, they're going to continue to smear you from a distance because, in my experience, they don't change. The narcissist will remain a narcissist. As long as there's enablers surrounding them, the roles will only get shuffled around. And what happens to us is really that there's going to be an initial emptiness, because leaving or going no contact or emotionally detaching from all of that, it really can feel a little bit like you're losing your identity. Because when you spend your entire life being the problem, freedom can actually feel strangely empty, like you have no meaning. And you might actually find yourself wondering, who am I outside of this story? Like I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I mean nothing to no one, Like what's the point of my existence, But as you leave and as you work on your healing, eventually something does click. They didn't actually reject you. They rejected the truth that you represented, okay? They didn't reject you for who you are. That's not it. They rejected the truth that you represent, and they can't handle it. And this realization is really what changes everything. What makes everything click, You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop apologizing for being real. You understand that you're actually not broken. You're not flawed. There's nothing wrong with you. You're actually really very powerful. And you were the one strong enough to carry what everybody else avoided. You're strong enough to actually remain authentic, in the face of this dysfunction while everybody else was trying to convince you that you're the one who's crazy. It's very hard to stand alone and look at an entire crowd and speak your truth and know deep down inside that it ain't you. You're not the problem. And that's what healing looks like. It's not perfection. It's not approval. It's finally becoming who you are before they told you that you were wrong for being you. So stay strong. Continue working on that self-discovery. Continue working on getting rid of that guilt, which makes no sense because you didn't do anything wrong. All you're doing is protecting yourself at this point. So I hope this helped you. And remember, I love myself, I trust myself, and I'll see you soon.